building is. And last, requiring large buildings do an audit once a decade, and we think that that will force them to realize how much money they're spending and go and make those kinds of upgrades. We were going to insist that they do energy upgrades where the payback was within 6 or 7 years, but we ran into two problems. One was obviously the inability for a lot of landlords to get a loan, but more importantly, we have yet to solve the problem of if the landlord has to pay for the upgrade but the tenant gets the benefit, there's an inherent unfairness that makes it politically difficult to institute. So we'll work on that. But if tenants understand what they are paying for, whether it's directly or indirectly, maybe even that can be adjudicated. And our plan actually generates something like 18,000 construction jobs and other kinds of jobs to upgrade these facilities. And will save the city and landlords something like $700 million a year. So it is a big deal. I will say we're doing it fundamentally without state aid. Our state is very different than Washington or Wisconsin. Our state uses the stimulus funds to balance their budget rather than doing anything else with it. And so we're sort of there doing it on our own. It's a different approach to creating jobs. The jobs we create are in government and state government as opposed to, but don't start me. The other mistake, incidentally, and these governors will agree with me, but if the federal government really wants to do something, you give the money directly to the cities. The dumbest piece of ways of distributing money is to send it through the states, and not because the governors are venal or the legislature is venal, but just because they have to spread it around the states for political reasons and fairness reasons. And most of the environmental damage is done, and most of the chances for improvement are in the big cities. And so I've said this to the president, and I've said it to every member of Congress that I can buttonhole. They obviously, most of them come out of state legislatures, so they will go and give their monies through the state legislature. But the inefficiency of that kind of distribution, if you're trying to accomplish a specific purpose, like fixing the economy, is just so great that it is one of the great wastes of money. The number of hazmat trucks that are being bought for localities that don't know what hazmat is a good example of why you certainly shouldn't do this. When you find an Al-Qaeda operative, the map that they have is typically not of a rural area, it's from a central city. And it's not just New York, it's throughout this country. It is where more than half the people in this country now live in big cities. And whether it's the big cities in Wisconsin or Washington or New York, or in your state, you really have to send the money where the problem is, otherwise it will never get done. The stories are legion of the projects where the federal government even sent money to the state, and 2 or 3 years later they still haven't put a shovel in the ground. This shovel-ready concept is really a nice idea, but most of these projects will never get built, and the money will invariably go to do something that wasn't the primary purpose. Anyways, I've said my piece, annoyed all the governors and state legislators in the whole world.